I was looking for other cops that had the same feelings that I did about the failures of our drug policy. I'm Neill Franklin, Executive Director for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. I felt that partnering with LEAP, and the reason I was looking for others that thought the same way I did, is because, I mean, just human nature to be with others who are from the same place that you are is a matter of comfort. Because it's being a police officer speaking out against current drug policy is not a comfortable place to be alone. So you want to join with others for that moral support, for that shoulder to lean on, in meeting all the other speakers and the leaders of the organization, like Peter Criss and Jack Cole, seeing the monumental work that they've done, where they had done this work, not just here in the United States, but internationally as well. Then I knew for certain that this was the organization that I needed to be partnered with and to become a member of. And so, in the fall of 2008, I started publicly speaking for LEAP. Shortly after that, I became a board member. In July of 2010, I left the law enforcement completely to become the executive director for the organization. I was a lieutenant with the Maryland State Police and assigned to a board position on Kurt Schmoke's, Mayor Schmoke's Needle Exchange Program Board. And that gave me some initial insight, but it wasn't until 2000, it was less than a year after I retired from the Maryland State Police, and a close friend, former comrade with the Maryland State Police, Ed Totley. He was an undercover agent for the Maryland State Police. He had been doing that work for about 14 years and was undoubtedly the best narcotics agent that Maryland, the whole state of Maryland, had ever seen. And we were having a conversation about this final drug buy, this purchase of cocaine from a mid-level drug dealer that he was working. He was assigned to an FBI task force at this time in Washington, D.C. And on October 30th, 2000, get a phone call. As a matter of fact, my wife and I were asleep and the phone rings, and it's late in the night, and it was another friend of ours, a comrade, calling to say that Ed had been shot and that it didn't look good. As soon as she told me this, I knew exactly what it was about. It was about that final buy of cocaine. It was literally one of the worst times of my life. And you know, the first thing you think about once you begin to move past the realization that your friend is no longer with you, then comes the anger. And you ask yourself, especially me, being a commander, and you know, Ed had worked many cases for me before I retired, and the first thing when this anger starts to sit in that you ask yourself is, who screwed up? Because there was a surveillance team. You know, who dropped the ball? You know, who missed something? Who, you know, and you start asking these questions. But what was really interesting about this time is that I also started thinking about, you know, others. Marty Ward, who was a Baltimore City police detective working undercover in Baltimore when I was working undercover for the Maryland State Police in the 1980s, he was shot and killed doing an undercover operation. And then you have others, and you start thinking about the others that you know that have died. And as the days go on and the months go on, and you realize that it's not someone screwing up on their assignment, it's the policy. It's the policy of prohibition that was bad. And it wasn't but 2 years later, around, I believe it was also in October, that the family of 7, the Dawson family in Baltimore, 7 people were murdered at one time by the neighborhood drug dealer. The mother, Angela, was working with the police on removing this drug dealer from the corner right outside her front door. She had young boys who she did not want exposed to the danger of that illicit drug trade, the shootings. She didn't want them recruited into the business, so she was working with the police. But this guy was apparently pissed off that she was interfering with his market share, and so early one morning in October, he breaks into their home, sets it on fire, and 7 people die just like that. And it's so clear that it's the policy. You think about the drive-by shootings and the running gun battles and the little girls that are shot. You know, the kids can't play outside their own front door. They hear gunshots all day long. And this is in our neighborhoods. South of our border in Mexico, you've got people dying at the hands of the cartel, murders, homicides. The past 4 years, 40,000. And it's not because people use drugs. It's because of the policy of prohibition that makes a plant, a powder, so valuable that people create illegal trades, illicit markets. And the only way they know how to protect their market share is with guns and violence. Sounds just like alcohol prohibition in this country back in the 1920s. And it only took our grandparents 13 years to realize that they made a mistake. They were wise enough to figure it out after only 13 years, and here we are 4 decades later into drug prohibition, and we don't have a clue.